Appeals. The time is 7:05 p.m. on this Tuesday, July 9, 2019. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Mr. Ed Baum, Ms. Lisa Carson, and Ms. Kay Towsley. I am John Goldie, acting chair, and our alternates are not here tonight. Also present are zoning administrator Mr. Lance Allison and secretary Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact, based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the Board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the Board to the applicant. Thank you.
The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Thank you. We only have one case, and that case is case number 19-06V, the property at 18 West Carpenter Street. Zone is R3. RVC Architects, or the appellant. Appellant is requesting variances from ACC 2310 Table A, a schedule of bulk controls, to allow construction of a parking lot with 71% total lot coverage, where 60% total lot coverage is the maximum allowed. And from ACC 230801A to allow a curb cut of 22 feet in width, where 20 feet is the maximum allowed. Mr. Reschenbacher, on their narrative, they say that the curb cut is not necessary, they are not requesting a variance for that.
I'm not sure of the wording of that, whether they meant that or whether they mean they're abandoning the current curb cut for the one that they want. You'll probably have to ask the appellant.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Any questions for the code office?
I have a question. Do you know what the approximate lot coverage is currently for the existing building?
We just figured that out today, and we think it's 76%.
Okay, you may come to the podium, state your name and your address and your case and the question that I just asked him.
Okay. My name is Jeremy Bittinger. I'm an architect and principal at RVC Architects, and my home address is 8347 Lavelle Road, Athens. May I bring up some drawings that might clarify a little bit? Of the two items that we were rejected for, I will address the curb cut first because it is pretty simple. I think it was a sort of misinterpretation, and the drawing was a little maybe.
Is this any different than the one we have?
No, it's no different. It's no different at all. All I did is highlighted a couple of areas. So the area in the demolition plan, that's the existing buildings, where I marked in yellow, that is the existing curb cut to get access to the parking lot for the apartments that are there. We are actually abandoning that curb cut, and we're going to infill that there's a retaining wall. So we'll infill that with a retaining wall, and we'll, so that the entire piece of property will basically be raised to the level that it is now. There's a retaining wall there now, but we're going to build a new one that's going to be a little bit nicer aesthetics. So the in the proposed site plan that you see on the right-hand side of the page, what appears to be a 22-foot driveway and curb cut, that is actually raised up, and that's just a place for them to back out and go back out. So the place that I marked in red is the only access point for the new parking. And I can see where that would be misunderstood because it looks like it's a driveway coming out to Stimson or Carpenter at that point. I guess it's Carpenter, but it's not a driveway. That's just a backing up point for the parking lot to get back out. So there is not, actually we're eliminating the one curb cut, and there's not going to be a curb cut along Carpenter Street at all. What we're proposing is a new retaining wall that'll be faced with brick, and then above that, so around the parking lot, there will be masonry piers with like a wrought iron infill. So that'll be our screen fence around the parking. Something that's a little more aesthetically pleasing in that site. As far as the lot coverage, again, the existing lot coverage is a little bit higher than what we're asking for, as we just heard. But this is for the use that they're anticipating. This is the minimum number of parking spaces that they really want. And the use of the parking spaces is twofold. They actually have, parking spaces in the back of the building now, but when they have functions, when they have dinners, when they have banquets, there's not enough parking to serve the needs of the lodge. So they do really want to have extra parking just for members. But even with that, most of those events are evenings and weekends. So even with the current lot that they have now, through the weekdays, they rent some spaces to uptown businesses for employees to park, so there's a little bit less burden for customers or clients to get uptown. And that's their anticipated use through the week for this new parking lot as well, is it will be able to be leased or rented to uptown businesses so they can have more off-street parking available. We have discussed, there's another project just 1 or 2 properties down the block, the Mount Zion Baptist Church, that they're trying to come up with a use for that really is landlocked. They don't have room for parking. So we've already mentioned maybe that entity, whatever it becomes in the future, might rent spaces from them and have a place to park adjacent to their building. But that's really the argument that we have, is that they need an extra parking space, and then it can help relieve some of the parking that adjacent to uptown. Are there any other questions? Did I address the question about the curb cut then?
Yes, before we go to the questions, I just want to say for the records that, again, I apologize for not having a full board members, but you did accept to be heard with only 4 members.
Yes.
Okay, just want to confirm that. Go ahead.
Would it so negatively affect the use of the building if, in fact, parking spaces number 13 and 14 were left into green space, which would bring you down to the 60% required?
I don't know if it would get us all the way to 60%.
It's close. I figured it out as best as my calculator could do.
It would be close. Again, the idea is just to sort of maximize what we can on the property and the site. I don't know that it would necessarily harm them, but they asked. We had a couple different designs that we showed the members of the lodge, and they asked us to go for this layout. Obviously, they want to maximize what they have on the site.
Of course.
Any questions for the appellant?
Question. That little sort of sideways tombstone shaped area just above space number 25, it's not a parking space. What is that for?
That's just to allow adequate turning space when you come in for that first space.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it would be like an island. I mean, it could have a tree or a planting or something in it, but I don't think it would be very practical to be able to turn into that first space without having a little bit of gap there.
Any other questions? Mr. Eschenbacher, based on what the appellant mentioned, are we okay with the curb cut? Could we remove that from the?
Yes, you can remove that from the variance
Okay,
request.
thank you. And I didn't really see the size of each part. Do they meet the 200 square feet required for each space?
Is it 200 square feet or 180?
It's 180.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
they're 9 foot by 20 foot.
Right.
There is a dimension on the plan. I know this is a small. This isn't the full size. This is a half size sheet, but the dimension is on there. They're 9 foot by 20 foot, so they're 180 square feet per space.
You may be seated.
Well, let me ask,
One more question. Go ahead.
would you be willing to accept it if we stated that 13 and 14 should be green space?
I think they would. They would obviously prefer to have the maximum, but I believe they would accept that.
Well, yeah, if that's the case, they wouldn't be here then.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that would make a good reason for them not to be here.
Well, if you'd like to make a motion later on, we vote on it.
Go ahead. Okay, I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance from ACC 23.
No, wait a minute. No, wait, no.
You want me to make a motion?
Later on, you could make a motion if you want to green a space. No, we haven't done the findings. Right, yeah.
Okay, I thought we were.
No, we haven't. So
Okay.
is there any other questions for the appellant or the code office? So you may be seated. We may call you again.
Thank you.
Sure. Now you can make the motion.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance from ACC 2310 Table A Schedule B of bulk controls to allow construction of a parking lot with 71% of total lot coverage, where 60% total lot coverage is the maximum allowed. And we eliminated the other part.
You're
Okay,
right.
that's saying
Yeah.
period.
Okay.
To the property at,
Yeah.
property at 18.
Oh, I forgot that. Property at 18 West Carpenter Street. All details.
I second.
Okay, you got second. My thinking before was that if you want to make a part of a motion for spaces 13 and 14 to be green space, we can
I
discuss
will make it
that.
as an amendment. So,
We have to vote on it.
no, we have to vote on, I move to amend the motion that is on the floor to the elimination of lots 13 and 14 from the plan. We need a second now.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor of
Let's
the
just,
amendment?
we have to discuss it.
Okay.
Any discussion
On your amendment?
on my amendment?
I totally,
Okay.
I think that's what they want, to have this number of spaces, and that's what they have applied for the variance in here.
Yes, but
I think we should go.
Also, if they were to come back, if, for instance, this gets voted down tonight, I think they'd be allowed to come back if the plan would be alternate enough. If they come back without those two
Right.
spaces, it would be a different plan, and they could come back next month rather than have to wait for a year.
So we are going to vote with
So,
your
are you-
motion.
are you suggesting that we vote it down so they can come back with 13?
No, I'm suggesting what might happen. I'm suggesting to the appellant, letting them know that if what they've requested tonight, without your amendment, gets turned down, then they can go back and discuss if they want to eliminate a couple of parking spaces, see if they even need a variance with the elimination of those two spaces. If they still do, then they can come back the next month. Usually, they'd have to wait a year because it would be the same plan. But since it would be a different plan, they'd be allowed to come back next month if they wish to. If
So-
they still need a variance.
Question is,
Less
are you
space.
comfortable with us turning it down and then coming back next month?
Assuming it gets turned down.
Assuming it gets turned down.
Well, first of all, I think we have to vote on the amendment,
No, it was still part of the discussion on the amendment.
but eventually.
Yeah, I just want an answer question
So,
because it affects how I vote on the amendment.
explain to me again, so,
Well, what,
is
My amendment
there
is,
a vote?
Okay.
There's no vote without the amendment, and the amendment's been made, so we're only voting with the amendment. Is that correct? Or is
right
there
now,
a
we're
vote
just
without?
voting on the amendment.
We're gonna have a separate vote for the amendment,
Okay,
and then we're gonna proceed.
okay. Yeah, the client wants to move forward as quickly as possible, so I guess the answer to the question would be yes, we'd be willing to come back next week or next month with
Okay.
with Rob's statement.
In which case, with the second approval, I withdraw my amendment.
I withdraw.
So is withdrawn?
Just withdraw.
Okay. Very good. So basically, we are talking about
The motion.
71% versus 60% total lot coverage.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Exceptional circumstances. Are there exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone?
That's the problem. I don't see any. There's nothing exceptional or unusual here. They simply want to make maximum use of a property.
Well, one could argue it's a small lot, they need a certain number of parking spaces, and it's hard to achieve that within a small lot and not violate code requirements.
Yeah, I'm not sure that simply wanting to maximize one's profits is a suitable zoning appeal requirement.
Well, again, the variance is 71% versus 60%.
Yes.
And they're adding 2 more spaces than they could. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Same argument.
Same argument.
Preservation of equal property rights. Are we granting more privilege to this piece of property than the others in the same zone or same vicinity than other properties?
Imagine other property larger, lot
Larger.
coverage than required.
No, I believe there's a parking lot right around the corner on North Congress that has more than that, but it was placed in before the lot coverage rules went into effect.
So now I have a question. Is it too late to ask a question?
No, go ahead.
I'm confused about this question of maximizing their income, because aren't they wanting this parking also for their members?
Yeah, but it's the same thing. They don't say we have to have 25 spaces. They say, I use the word here, I wrote it down. They said, we would like to have, I lost the page I wrote it on. So there's nothing that requires, the minimum they really want is what the words he used. Now, just because someone wants something doesn't mean it allows us to violate what the general principles of the code are. Unless there's some exceptional circumstances or something unusual about the property or the use of the property that allows us to move forward with a variance on the zoning code.
But so I don't understand, so if it's for their members so that they can attend events and so on, then that's an exceptional circumstance because they have members that aren't able to get the parking they want.
If that were the
Could you please come back to the
But they're
podium?
also suggesting they may rent out those spaces as well.
So I guess we need clarification on that.
Let me ask you this question.
Well, he said they might. He said
Yeah, they
they're
might.
only going to, the Masonic Temple is only going to use the parking part of the time. And they're going to be looking into seeing if they could lease out the spaces at the other times.
Right.
So,
To the best of your knowledge, has there been cases that you didn't have sufficient, or you had more than 25 members who wanted to park there?
So for the dinners and banquets that they have, they can hold as many as 200, 250, 175 people.
Okay.
So if you count, even with the existing parking spaces and the 25 proposed new spaces, that's only around 50 or 55 spaces.
Okay.
But
So their events are capable of holding much more.
But if the
than that.
parking spaces are leased, then won't they be in use when the members, I don't understand.
The members, the dinners and banquets and their events are typically evenings and weekends. So their intention would be to lease them the spaces to uptown businesses
Only, I
during
see.
the day.
Yeah, I guess you must have said that. Okay,
Yep.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Promise not to ask you questions again.
Yeah, it seems to me that if they want more parking for their members, that is an
Yeah.
exceptional circumstance.
then they should buy 3 more lots and have 100 parking spaces. There's nothing unusual about this, simply the fact that they would like more parking spaces. And as I said, they said it was what they really want. They could want it 23 as well as 25. And if it violates what we say in our zoning code, you have to have something special. There's nothing special about this.
Well, I agree with Lisa's on the special case.
And the lot coverage is smaller than it has been.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's an improvement, right?
according to our zoning code, if I recall correctly, when there are changes in use or anything, we want them to get closer to what the expectation is. And the expectation is 60%.
We also know parking is a big problem
Yeah.
in general, and this would alleviate some of that.
Okay, good. We have 2 different points of view here for the time being. Okay, minimum variance. Is this going from 71% to 60% required? That amounts to what, 2 parking spaces? The difference would be 2. So
If they're
basically
13 and 14,
Yeah,
the other spaces are smaller.
yeah, okay. Not of a general nature.
It's not.
No, it's not.
Okay, very good. Are we ready to vote? All in favor of granting the variance, please raise your hand. All opposed? You have your variance 3-1. Okay, before we go through our discussion on the change of the city zone code, proposed changes, let's go with the disposition of the minutes from June 11, 2019. I assume you all have read? And you were all here last time, right? Except,
I think I was here.
Okay.
okay,
I move approval of the minutes of June 19th,
June 11.
11th.
I second.
Okay, all in favor of, or accepting or
In favor.
what was the word?
In favor.
Approving.
Approving, yeah.
Approving the minutes. Raise your hand. You got 4-0, no opposed. Okay, we have had several cases coming to us, to the Board of Zoning in the past, which is based on ACC 230502A, which will be read into the records later on. And in this cases, the property is either been grandfathered for the rules, and the appellants basically want to make some changes to make the case less objectionable. Maybe reducing something. Sometimes they are forced to maybe do some renovation for a variety of reasons. And then when they do that, they automatically fall into this ACC 230502A, which requires for them to come to the zoning board. So our members have been working very hard on a proposal, and I have asked Ms. Carson and Ms. Towsley to maybe each one read the pages. These are the original authors, and then we will discuss it.
Ready?
Go ahead.
All right, BZA proposal for small lot variance request. Summary. The Board of Zoning Appeals recommends that City Council adopt a small change to Athens City Code so that certain regularly occurring variance requests described below be approved by the Code Director rather than come to the Board for a decision. Recommendation. The specific change the BZA recommends to Code is to replace the word BZA with Code Director as noted in BCC 230502A below. BCC 230502, non-conforming uses or, I guess it should be.
No, it is or, I think.
Or
Uses
buildings.
Or buildings.
Okay, enlargement, substitution, etc. No existing building or premises or the use thereof not permitted by the zoning code in the zone in which such building or premise is located, except when required to do so by law or order, shall be enlarged, extended, reconstructed, substituted, or altered unless changed to a use permitted in the zone in which such building or premises is located, and except as follows. A, substitution. When authorized by the code currently says BZA, we are suggesting that we substitute Code Director here, so we're suggesting it should read, when authorized by the Code Director, the substitution for a non-conforming use of another not more objectionable non-conforming use may be made. However, in an R1 zone, no change shall be authorized to any use that is not permitted, that is not a permitted or conditionally permitted use in any zone. B, non-conforming use made to conform. Whenever a non-conforming use has been changed to a conforming use, such use shall not thereafter be changed to a non-conforming use. And here's some background. The BZA regularly hears and unanimously approves requests for variances from owners of properties whose lot size are less than and often far less than the minimum size required in the code's schedule of bulk controls, which is 8,000 square feet in an R1 zone, 6,000 square feet for one family, or 7,000 square feet for two family in an R2 zone. These variance requests are sought so that the owners can make permit-required improvements to their properties, including external home improvements such as replacing old, deteriorating decks with new ones, or adding a gable to an existing stoop for protection from weather. Before a permit-required improvement can be made to a property that is out of compliance with code, as virtually all of these small lot properties are, a variance needs to be granted. Rather than go through the process of presenting and hearing these cases, the BZA proposes that the code director be allowed to approve them on the spot. These could be granted in cases where appellants' improvement plans will not put the property out of compliance if currently compliant, or further out of compliance if currently non-compliant. Example, if the permit has been denied because the front setback is too shallow and the appellant wants to add a deck to the rear without violating the rear setback requirement, the variance can be given on the spot. Similarly, if the front setback is too shallow, the appellant wants to replace a deteriorating front stoop with one of equal or lesser depth, regardless of the width, the variance can be given without a hearing. If, however, the appellant wants to replace the old stoop with a new, deeper one, the variance request needs to be heard by the BZA. Examples of qualifying cases, 3 examples of cases heard in the past year which would lend themselves to such an on-the-spot variance are described below.
Example number 1, heard on January 8th of 2019, case number 2, case 1829V, 25 Eden Place, in the R1 zone. The appellant was Heritage Home Improvement. The appellant, here's the request. Appellant is requesting variances from Athens City Code 2310, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow additions of a front porch, back deck, and carport to a structure with a front setback of 22 feet, where 25 feet is the minimum requirement, a left side setback of 4 feet, where 5.5 feet is the minimum requirement, and a right side setback of 0 feet, where 5.5 feet is the minimum requirement. The variance was approved 5-0. The lot size is 5,775 square feet. Summary. Appellant wants to make 3 modest improvements to the property: replace the current deteriorating front stoop with one of the same size, and add a gable above it to provide protection from bad weather, add a carport over an existing blacktop driveway to provide weather protection, and replace a current 4x4 or 5x5 concrete stoop with a 12x12 deck. A larger deck is still within back setback requirements. Example number 2, heard May 8th, 2018, case 1812V at 285 East State Street. An R1 zone, the appellant is Michael Fraden. Appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 2310, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow construction of a deck on the rear of a building with a front setback of 19 feet, where 25 feet is the minimum requirement. Approved 5-0, lot size 5,670 square feet. Summary, appellant wants to replace an old, deteriorating deck, 12 by 8 feet, with a new, larger deck. The larger deck is still within back setback requirements. And example number 3, March 13th, 2018, case 1809V at 37 Maplewood Drive in an R1 zone, Alan and Corinne White, appellants. Appellant is requesting a variance from Athens City Code 2310-01, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls. I guess it should be 10, but Schedule of Bulk Controls to allow the construction of an accessory structure with a left side setback of 1 foot, where 5 feet is the minimum requirement, and building lot coverage of 32%, where 30% is the maximum allowance. Approved 5-0, lot size 5,500 square feet. Summary. Appellant wants to renovate an existing old historic accessory building, a garage, to include a bedroom and small pocket bathroom for use of out-of-town visiting family members.
Dr. Baum, you also had some assistance in this proposal. Did you have anything extra you wanted to add to this or anything?
No, I think it pretty well covers it. It's if something is so routine that the Board of Zoning Appeal, the code administrator can easily approve it without it having to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals, that is better for the city of Athens.
Anything else you want to add?
No.
No. Mr. Eschenbacher, do you have any comment on this? Anything,
Well,
precedents, any other
Lance,
activities?
the only thing Lance and I were, and we'll check into it, we agree with the general principle, it's just some of the wording. The substitution when authorized by the code director, I think we need to check to make sure if it be code director or service safety director. I understand your general principle, you
Right.
want it to go to somebody in administration to make the decision rather than you folks.
Okay.
I think we just have to find out legally, technically, whether you can say him directly or you have to say zoning administrator or say code enforcement office.
Okay.
Or if it goes all the way up to service safety director. But
Okay.
the general principle, we don't have a problem with, we're fine.
Have you had any similar cases for other situations that now is being taken care of the code office rather than coming to us? I understand fire,
Well,
for example.
as I talked to you before, the one exemption power that the zoning administrator has is in the sign ordinance. Normally balloons and streamers and giant inflatable King Kongs are not allowed. However, it says that the zoning administrator is allowed to give an exemption when he feels like it, when he thinks it's proper. So in that case, he is allowed to give an exemption that's written in there in that part of it. So I think this is along the general same principle that there are these rules, but the zoning administrator or service safety director or whoever can give an exemption. Because the basic problem is still in the term change. What constitutes change? And if you change to make it more conforming, do you still need to come before you guys? Based on the examples you gave. So,
Okay.
generally, yeah, we approve of the changes you suggested.
Okay, very good. Again, this is just a proposal. It has to go to the city council for approval or even hearing. And then these are the cases that the appellant is not changing, as been mentioned before. There's no increase in the footprint. There's no number of occupancy changes, or basically they want to improve the property. And this creates a hardship for them. So we'll find out exactly.
We will need a motion to send this to city council for their review and
Sure.
action.
But city council will discuss with the code office the question about service safety director or whatever? I mean, how do we?
What I will do is I will bring it to the service safety director and the mayor, and they will pass along to city council what they would like to see, and then ultimately city council will still have the ultimate say of what it would say.
Okay, thanks.
But we still have to formally ask him to do it.
Yeah.
Now we need a vote.
Yeah,
We need a vote for that 4 of us agree on this proposal to be sent. So that's the motion.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals make a recommendation for a change in the Athens City Code, section ACC 230502, paragraph A, substitution by changing the word BZA to code director or the appropriate city official.
I second.
All in favor of this, raise your hands. So the board approves, the Board of Zoning. I don't think there's any change to this, Mr. Reschenbacher. I will send you an electronic copy to you tomorrow, and then we will go to what you suggested. Anything, any other business?
Just make sure I have.
No?
it, so I can-
Yeah.
The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.